Hi all. So it's time to start. I know that everyone is after the lunch, so we are quite lazy. I'm too. So I will try to make it add us some energy. And let's start from the questions. Who from you are from software houses? Or understanding the project's ideas rather than product development? Okay, just few. Okay, so my presentation will be a little of the story of software house. So the company which deliver projects. We have small products, but mostly we are going to the clients or clients come to us and they need some project, some application, extension, or whatever. So it will be quite of the story of the transformation, how we work with our clients in terms of test automation. So a few words about me. I'm from Poland, and the company which called Cognified. I joined company about 11 years ago. When it was small startup, we had about 25 people abroad. Now we have about 500 people, and I built here the QA practice from 1, so I was the first, till about 65 engineers. And a year ago, I changed job, and now I'm able to look at QA or testing from a different perspective as I manage the engineering. Yeah? So QA is just a very small part. So now I see how I thought that things are important, and now a little less. And I was the founder of the oldest Polish testing meetup. We organized about 65 events so far. And unfortunately it's in Polish, but I record a podcast with my friends, but in Polish, so. So what we are going to talk about? A little introduction to the world of projects. So what I'm understanding by that. So you will know and understanding the context of our world. And then we are going through some transformation, which I divided on 3 parts. 1, how we are going to sell test automation. Second is about tools, frameworks that we had in our company, how we transform our approach to that. And second, how we're going to deliver this automation as we start to selling more and more, yeah? Okay, so let's start from the introduction. So Cognified is a project-based company, as I said. We deliver mostly web application. We are the integrator. So there are other people's companies who deliver the third parties, some services and others, and we integrate everything and display for the users. So for example, if you go on some Ford, I think as an automotive company site, everything what you see is our, but it doesn't mean that we do some backend stuffs. Yeah, and we customize all these solutions which are delivered by Adobe Sidecar too. So let's go to the test automation part. So about 10 years ago, when we started to talk with our clients, mostly we talk about the ROI, so return of investment. Does it make sense to invest in automation? Because we have test cycles, it was quite easy. So we are planning 20 test cycles, it's 10 tests, let's say 10 test cases, time of execution of manually is this part. So if you automate, the cost will be. But we start to transform and it stopped working for us. Because we introduce exploratory testing. We say, okay, so maybe developers start testing. We transfer to QA, to supporting. Even we start to implementing the test pyramid, so we weren't able to calculate the cost of manual testing or even the cost of automated testing because it was very difficult in our transformation. So the ROI stop doesn't work for us. Second thing, the world changed, and there was another question, not to if automation makes sense, but if you would like to work in a specific cases, your ways of working, you have to just to automate something, yeah? So it wasn't just ask about the money. Okay, but we go some path of transformation. So when we stop to talk about ROI, we start talking with client about test coverage. but on the different level, code coverage, test case coverage, requirement features. And client doesn't understanding us. One client even asked me, could you just write a good code from the beginning? Why you don't need so many test automation? And I couldn't answer this question. It is quite difficult, yeah? So you say, we don't write a good quality code? No. Second was, okay, so if we would like to automate, agree on some coverage, for example, on test case level, so the question was, it should be 10, 20, 30, 80. There are some tips on the internet, yeah, you can just find something that some research say it should be 80, some say 20. So it was difficult even to agree something at the beginning. So we say that, okay, we need to transform and look about this automation in a little different way. We make some brainstorming in our team, but not just the testers, yeah? We take to the brainstorming our sellers, our business, developers, project managers, so create the team. And the first brainstorming, we stop with these questions. Does test automation bring business value to our client? So what do you think about that? Who say that yes? Okay, cool. So let's go. So what does mean the business value? What is our understanding from the business value? It's a delivery approach, yeah? So number of releases, do you want continuous delivery? Should release be production ready, for example, yeah? Or maybe they accept that some releases doesn't work well, yeah? Or time to release, yeah? How much you would like to fix that? So those two, it's about delivery, business features. But there are other ones. So there is an extendability and maintainability, yeah? So when you're talking with a client, you can ask him, it's just one-off projects, or maybe we are going to extend these projects to improve, adding new features and things like that. If it's one-off, maybe it doesn't make sense to automate because it's just one, we forgot, everybody happy, yeah? Or maybe we are going to extend this. So if we're going to extend, how often and how costly should be this extension, yeah? Another thing, is there any business logic? There are any technical business risk? Or for example, our client says, I need A/B testing. Cool, so should we deliver this as a code change? Or maybe let's build some features which allow client to do this business value, yeah? So as the solution, we find that from our perspective, this automation doesn't bring any business value for a client. Sometimes it's just a solution. Sometimes it's a very small one, sometimes important, sometimes not, but it doesn't bring business value. And it's why client always asking a lot about this automation, does I need, or doesn't understanding us, yeah? So we stop to talking with our clients about test automation. But we still see that we are the expert. So we are now talking about values like I mentioned before, or even a lot of more, trying to understand client, and then come to him with solution. Solution is sometimes test automation, yeah? We need quite expensive one, we need some very specific high coverage or things like that. And now, if you're going to the client with this one, so this is a solution. Oh, but it's very expensive at the beginning. Okay, so what do you want to omit? Or do you don't? Because at the beginning you say that you want to deliver daily. So if you would like to cut with test automation, for example, with our proposal, so we are not going to deliver daily anymore. And then he not cut test automation, he cut the business value. And it's very important, very difficult from perspective, client perspective, even from us, yeah, to cut the values, yeah, because I want to deliver daily. It's changed the perspective of talks. And we learn, yes, that the test automation is not the most important value in most cases. Even, for example, we look from the continuous delivery, we say that it's better for us to invest more in automated deployment, for example, to think about blue-green deployments, canary releases, and prepare this solution from architecture point rather than invest a lot of money in automation. Because other things bring more value than just investing in test automation. So if we summarize this part, about the selling, so we never ask now client about, do you need test automation? If it doesn't bring me value, I don't want that. Or what automation coverage do you need, and things like that. Or even we say, you have quality problems, let's invest in test automation. No, I even have a friend in the company which invests a lot in test automation. And what changed? Nothing, the quality is still the same. Because after that, they invest very small time just to look about the analytics, to understanding how client works, and change the testing, manual testing part. And it brings a lot of changing. So yeah, so automation doesn't solve all the problems. Okay, so we're selling now automation. We deliver it more and more. It becomes more and more important in our project. So as we are a project company, so we deliver about 20 projects in parallel. And they're most not the same, but sometimes it's very similar, yeah? Because we are specialized in web, in CMSs, and things like that. So we create tools and frameworks. And of course, to cut the cost and be effective, we would like to reuse them in projects. Because it makes sense, yeah? It's cheaper, it's faster, which is obvious. But we have existing the infrastructure for test automation, for example. Our teams are familiar with our tools, yeah? And our tools are specialized and do exactly what we need. There is no overhead like if you just choose some common tools. So the idea looks great from our perspective, but then client comes to us. And for them, it wasn't. Because at the beginning, in our world, the client is the owner of the code. And what is happened if you use your framework with the projects like this? You lost the framework. You can't use this framework anymore in any other projects. Because you are not the owner now. So it's, if you build a framework, invest a lot, and now you lost it, it's a little bad thing, yeah? Then we are working for Fortune 500 companies, yeah? So they have approved tools, a list of them. And yeah, and was surprised, our internal tools and frameworks wasn't on the list. So a lot of talks, how to add our tools to their list, takes a lot of time. Another questions from clients, do you share the code with us? At the beginning, yes, we could share the code, it's not the issue. But we realized that, okay, but our competitors work with this company too, and we deliver together some special application. So do we want to share our code with our competitor? Maybe not. And another question from the client, because we have a framework, so someone have to maintenance it, yeah? New browser appears, new other version, new our CMS version appears. So who is going to cover the cost? And another question, because now the world changed, and what I see is the direction that our clients, it's called vendor lock, so doesn't want to be locked to the one vendor, yeah? They would like to just say, I don't want to cooperate with you, I'm going another one. It's very important now from the business perspective, not to lock to the same vendor. So they would like to be able just to read off our frameworks. This was very important for them. Okay. So as you see, we were so happy, but when the clients comes to us with a lot of questions, it stopped to be easy to use reusing the frameworks. But it's just not the client, because our business comes to us too. And first the questions. How much our internal IP is worth? Because maybe we should ask client to pay for that. Why not? So additional. So can we get additional money from our framework or tools if you are going to use in the project? But when you're selling the projects for few millions, Does your clients want to talk about 20,000? Probably not, yeah? So everything like that, final with the result that we have a project, we start the projects, but we talk a lot how or when we can start to use our frameworks. And probably we are able to finish these talks at the end of the project. So it started very late, we produced technical debt, which was very risky, and then solved this technical debt cost us a lot. Okay, so we need to figure out how to solve this issue. And does anybody knows what could be the answer? Any ideas? We didn't know too, but we was brave, and we figured out that we can open source our frameworks. And we open source it. So it wasn't easy decision for us, especially when we as a technical guys talking with the business, but we were able to do that. They give us free hand. So our client concerns was solved because it wasn't the issue now, yeah, that we lost the IP. It's open source framework, so everybody can use. Move to or add to internal tools for the companies like this Fortune 500. It's very easy. They are very open to add open source tools to their list, and so we can start using our frameworks just at the beginning of the project. Even especially as they read that our competitors use our frameworks. They don't give our names, but our frameworks made popular, yeah? There is no issue with share the code, because it's shared with everyone. And who covered the maintenance cost? That's a community, yeah? But community is not so big, but you always say, client, you can share the cost with us, yeah? Because if we have something specific project area with new version, we update it. If you would like to be up to date and you are very fast, of course, probably you will take some cost of that. But it solved the problems, yeah? Clients now are very open to use our internal frameworks. We are happy we can start at the beginning of the project. Yeah. And some other benefits, our people are proud of that because when they go to the clients or the conference, they can talk about things that are open and others can change. We are Cognified, are expert in our niche, but we are. And in fact, it's empower our company values because we always said that knowledge sharing for us is important, building a community is important. It's how we are. So it's supporting even our culture. And what's happened? Once my boss, after about 8 months, when the open source comes to me and say, Zbigniew, so we open source and things like that, but what do you think? How much our frameworks was, how much money we lost, yeah? Because we open source our IPs, but we could sell it. And then I realized that, in fact, we doesn't lose the money because when we start to, because we earn more on our money. Why? Because we have a bigger project scope. Now, we sell more automation, more scope, more work, yeah? But if we're using our tools, our clients buy a training from us, additional money. Then we're starting building this automation infrastructure for the clients, specific ones. So another part of the project that you can do. And of course, you need to maintain that. So another. So in fact, we now earn money on open source decision. But it's taken us about a year to understanding that we not lost money by open sourcing, but we start earning. Okay, so this is the part of the reusability of frameworks. And when we now selling more, do more things without test automation, not just writing tests, but to see, I'm talking about infrastructure and other parts which are important. We need to deliver that. So our teams has to change. It's about 8 years ago, I wrote an article for some international magazine, Testing Experience. It doesn't exist anymore, but maybe someone remember that. How we deliver the test automation before our transformation. Internal means something that happened in the project. External, outside the project. So only our tester was involved in test automation. We have a special team, automation team, tester teams, which were outside the projects, which automate test cases, yeah, for us. And then move to the projects, and testers inside the projects just maintenance them. There was needed some small changes, like in UI, for example, yeah? That just XPath change, locator change, things like that. So it's something which worked for us 8 years ago. But aside, we don't do this automation too much. But the world was changed, and these years we work a lot on different things. So for example, we work a lot to improve the quality of features delivered by developers. For us, it was very important. And in fact, we just recognize that our developers are interested in test automation. They want to write test scripts, automate this, not just on unit code level, or even on the higher too. So they was interested in this part. If you look about the previous slide, so when you have external teams or team of testers which automate, so the code was separate from the project, yeah? There was two repositories. Now we have just one repository. For us, our test automation, the code is part of application. Second, we change our DoD. We add the maintainable part. So now it's not just enough for devs to deliver a feature it works, but they need to figure out, or we as a team, how to ensure that this feature will be working in next 6 years, maybe not 6 years, but in next 5 months, yeah? So we are able to do some regression on that. And we switch our approach from testing to quality assurance. So now our testers are mostly supporting rather developers than just do this testing. Of course, they still do, because if you stop, after a few years, you stop become the expert. So you need to keep this, but there's the more, let's say that the higher priority is to supporting developers. And we better understanding test pyramid. So we would like to have this typical test pyramids, yeah? So testers, from my experience, are not able to be test pyramids. They're mostly concentrated on UI testing. And another thing, you don't want to duplicate tests from UI level, integration level, and Unicode level, yeah? So we solve that a little. And of course, continuous delivery comes to us, yeah? So if you look about this old SQA, when there was a lot of work externally and developers weren't involved, now we work like this. There is no test automation outside the project. We don't accept that. We even don't want to talk about test automation projects. When we heard, we just stopped because we don't understand that it can be the business value. I heard a lot about projects, test automation projects, which finish a year after the application was even canceled and no go on productions, because someone forgot and 5 test automation engineers sitting and automate still. So our developers now responsible for creating and maintenance those tests. So if you have a feature branch, yeah, for example, you adding new feature, it means that you need to change or add on this feature test automation code too. And if you merge, you're merging a code and test automation. But to be had, or I always say that there is something like Scrum Mastering. Yeah? Scrum Master is someone who self-organizes a team. So it's exactly the same with QA, with test automation. You need to have the owner, someone who cares, who talks, or sometimes has just the time to do some optimization, or just to write a few tests which we missed. Yeah. So it's the role of QA. And how it works in details? So QA is the owner, or is just accountable that the test automation works in our projects. when we're starting the projects, if there is a need, we do training for our developers from test automation, from the tools that we choose. So it's not the developer just writing. We need to skill them up. We change our definition of ready, or even just add. So we define what we'd like to automate for a feature, and we move that to the test pyramid in DOR. Thanks these developers are involved, and we not duplicate on different levels, and I'm able to move test automation as low as possible. Two-side code reviews. So if we talk about test automation, if dev writes test, QA do code review. And in reverse, if others. We have something which we call QA demo. So when the feature is ready, was merged, there is a demo for a QA, and everybody can come. And test automation is just a part of that demo too. And after the demo, we just make decisions. Do we want manual testing? Maybe not, because everything works great. And this DOD, as I said, we are maintainable, yeah? So we're caring about features. And yeah, sometimes we don't have a time. We need to release very, very quickly some feature, because it's a business at the end. So if we have some technical depth, for example, from test automation, we create a task, write this test or something like that, and we put in the backlog, which is prioritized exactly the same as other features. So there is no, as you see again, there is nothing separate for test automation. Test automation is like an application. Okay, and that's all from my side. So what I would like you to remember, the test automation is not a business value. It's sometimes solution, sometimes just one of the small part of the solution. But from business perspective, what we learned, it doesn't bring any business value. It can unlock some specific features, yeah, like they vary, but it's just a part of that. So we always talk about the business values and bring with solutions. Open source, open doors, yeah, it's great to open source, and we learned that it's bring a lot of values from our perspective. So it's worth to create community, to be part of the community. And what we learned is that whole team approach in test automation, especially if you implement in the way that we have, works, yeah? So there are no separate test, software developer in test or whatever you call it, engineers. For us, QA engineers has to have the skills to test, to write test automation. Maybe he's not great, but it's why there are code reviews, everything, we're a team, so we are learning. And that's all. So thank you.
Thank you very much for this talk. So my question is about what you just said about the feature branch. So you make the changes on the feature branch.
Yeah.
But how do you? I mean, do you have like some kind of continuous integration that runs the test on each feature branch?
Yeah.
And I mean, who does the modification of the feature branch of the tests? Because how will, I mean, is it the QA will do the maintenance of the change on the feature branch, or the developer? Sometimes the developer didn't change the feature, actually. He just changed, I don't know, some ID or the page view.
So still, for me, it's a change, how we understand. Because the question was about the merge, for example. Okay, the feature doesn't, and that it's fine, test automation may be not connected with the feature, but other tests, yeah? So in this case, the developer needs to fix that, because he can run all tests on local branch, for example, or even on the merge test file, so we do reverse. And he knows which test automation he needs to fix, even they are not connected with him. Sometimes it's why QA is, because QA works quite wide. So sometimes QA is the better person to fix, but our priority is that dev is going to that. But then you go to reality. Some QA has high skills, some other is learning, yeah? There is some pressure to deliver this feature, in some cases not. So then the team decide. But the first decision, the default one, is the developer should fix that. But in our cases, each project choose their ways of working, yeah? We give people freedom. Okay.
Yeah, the question is, do you have the same technological stack between SQA engineers and your developers?
Yes, in most projects, yes. We trying to choose the same languages, which use the developers. And in most cases, we find, especially in the more complicated projects, where you have a back-end, front-end engineers, things like that, the JavaScript is something that everybody can make, yeah? So I see this, the trend, but not everywhere. If there is a sense to choose very specific languages, because it brings you a lot of values, yes, we choose the specific one, but it's a very rare case. Rather, we see that it's better that whole team is able to support and to make changes to develop that. Not to be in the situation when the tester, for example, going on holiday, so nobody write or check test automations, but we release the code on production. So what is the value of test automation in this case? I don't see any.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Добрый день, спасибо за презентацию. Хотелось бы задать такой вопрос.
Thank you for your presentation. My question is, in your practice, have you ever had a case when manual testers started to join the automatization process and write automatic tests? So what is more efficient? Is it when manual testers also do automation, so they combine manual and automatic testing, or when there is a separate team of automatization engineers who are doing only that, who are not involved in manual testing completely? То есть, если у нас ситуация, когда...
Correctly?
На английском
Maybe it's not a question about situation, but maybe it's a general approach.
Okay,
So what's because in our company we really had such a case. One manager comes and says everybody will automate. So every tester in our company start learning programming, and everybody starts automation. Then that managers left our company, and another manager comes, and now we want have separate team automation. For what approach did you think better?
So we don't hire test automation, manual testers. We hire engineers. It's the first thing that we decide. We hire engineers, and we create a team from engineers which are able to switch to different roles. My experience says that it's better to put manual tester inside the team and ask to automate if he wants. If not, he have, in fact, two choices. He can leave our company. Yeah, we need to say that. Yeah, because it's the strategy, it's the ways of working that we would like to do. If the developer doesn't want to write test automation, he can do exactly the same, or accept our ways of working, our culture, or it's better the culture than ways of working. But of course, there are few people, I don't want to call them like manual testers, but each company who do 20 projects, we need some specialization, yeah? Some like, for example, accessibility, yeah? Or others, some kind of we don't have, for example, the job as Scrum Master. But we sometimes treat that if you can spend 20% in a team as a Scrum Master, it's good. So there are people who find how they could add value, but they don't want to automate. It's fine, but they had to find what values they can give us. Because in most cases, even we ask developers to test too, yeah? Some are business analysts, which spend 50% of business analysts. Second, adding some values, talking, supporting devs, yeah? So there are different roles, but there are no role like manual tester from my perspective. Yeah, you always have to invest in people. For me, it's natural.
In case when you teach testers, you teach them to programming language. It's tester usually have the willingness to programming. But how about you want your developers to test your code? Or it's often situation developers doesn't want to test, and the worse they don't want to learn testing approaches
Okay, so in our
and
case,
testing theory.
it's quite simple. It's our value, and the best is that it's something that it comes from their manager. So head of Java, for example, comes to 200 devs and sometimes says, guys, your responsibility is to testing. It's not that we as a testers say that, yeah? It's their boss side, and it's part of your assessment, yeah? So they have to. If not, minus, yeah? From the programming, as you said, we had in our company discussion, should we teach people who doesn't know how to programming, because we have you in some time, programming skills? We say no. We can teach you how to automate, but the first steps to programming, you need to learn yourself. And yeah, we say you are a mature guy. So no, it's not the school anymore. If you are interested, you really want to switch your role to be engineer to suit our better, to suit the company, so the value is higher than you're giving, so the money are bigger, and things like that. So you need to do some first step yourself, because everybody talk, I would like to test automate, give me some test automation. But then, when you have the opportunities, people always find some excuses not to do that. So we say, we don't going to learn the basic, but we do some skills, we take few devs, which open development skills, development school, but our QAs, testers, have to bring the subject, what they exactly need. If they come with the subject, they organize the lesson. But not that, from the beginning to scratch some lessons, and I take your hand and show you. No, we say you are mature guys. Okay. So thank you a lot. I'm here today and tomorrow. If you guys to speak, I'm really open and glad to do it.
Да, попрошу не забывать оценивать